Hello, I'm Tim Shoebridge. Welcome to this video, which is day two. It's not really day two, it's part two of my look at the Expressive-E Osmose. You'll see I've moved it in front of me here. I'm interacting with my computer with it. It's getting very, very exciting. Before I get stuck into what I'm going to cover in this video, I think the most important thing to cover is the sort of the weird crashing that was going on in my video number one. I need to address that. I did address it in the comments, but I just want to make it very, very clear that it wasn't the firmware crashing at all. It was intermittent power loss, basically, due to the type of connector that's used. So let me just show you a little video here showing you the connector. It looks like any other sort of AC adapter with a little connector to plug into the back of it, and I just didn't look at it closely enough. I have to say, it's all my fault. But you know, I plugged it in. It seemed to plug in fine, and it does work. However, it is going to just sort of, like, with the slightest wobble of the Osmose, it's going to potentially disconnect the power just long enough for the whole sort of operating system on the Osmose to sort of reboot itself, and that's what my crashing was. And what I didn't realize is if you really have to look quite closely at the plug. But you can see there's kind of two little sort of more metal, I don't know what you'd call them, flanges, spikes, I don't know what you call them, but anyway, they stick out, and you can line them up with the socket on the back of the Osmose and plug it in just that little bit more firmly, and then give it a twist to lock it in place. And that's what I was not doing. So that is the issue, and I don't think I'm the only one that's had that problem, and I don't think I'll be the only one in the future that's had that problem. But it's not a problem with the synth itself at all. It is my careless use of it, put it that way, my assumption that it just worked like any other normal sort of mains adapter. If I'd put my reading glasses on, then I might have seen that level of detail. But anyway, that's that. That is the crashing. It's not crashing at all. It was intermittent power loss due to the nature of the plug and the socket. So that's the first thing I wanted to cover. The second thing I wanted to cover is really an omission on my part in the first video, because I did some close-ups of the Osmose and pressing down the keys and wiggling them to show you the amount of movement that you have there, and the amount of expressivity that it generates. But one thing I didn't actually cover was just velocity sensitivity, and this keyboard has got this incredible dynamic range to it. Is it velocity sensitivity, or is it sort of downward pressure? I don't know the technical term for what's going on in the synth engine as to how it is providing this incredible dynamic range. But I just want to show you now a little demonstration of me pressing down on a key to give you an idea of the range of sounds and expressivity that you can get just with the up and down vertical movement pushing down on the key. So that's what I'm going to show you now. Right, so if I come back to that very first video I did about the Osmose, looking at some of the comments there, thank you for all your comments. Really, really nice to see you commenting and giving me feedback. Some very, very helpful comments, not only about how to get the editor software to work, but also in terms of the power issue that I had with the little adapter. But it's great to read all your comments and see what you think about this product, because it is a very, very unique product. A couple of people were sort of commenting that it looks like, it's not for me, the Osmose is not for me because I'm not a very good keyboard player. Those kind of sentiments I picked up on a couple of people saying that in the comments. So with this particular demo, I'm going to very consciously play very, very simply, maybe just a couple of fingers, and that's all. Try and keep it simple and try and just let the instrument speak for itself rather than me fiddling around and going up and down the keyboard. So that's something I'm going to do with this particular demo, because I really do think that expressivity, it's highly inspirational. You don't need to be very cleverly trying to play or emulate a guitar, for example. Just holding down a couple of keys and just getting that pressure right and a little bit of wiggle, it can make a huge difference to the sound. It's very, very inspiring to play, even with just one finger. So that's what I'm going to do with the demo that I come up with today. More comments, quite a few comments around, oh no, not more plucked sounds, flute sounds, fed up with those, not interested, thanks very much, yawn. And I get that, I do get that. There's lots of people that just want to use a poly aftertouch kind of keyboard for beautiful Vangelis kind of pads and that kind of thing. But you've got to remember that the expressivity of the Osmose is a really good way of trying to emulate real-world acoustic instruments like woodwinds, like plucked instruments, violins, cello, etc. If we go back to the 80s and into the 90s, it was Yamaha with their VL series of synthesizers, solo instruments, all digital, that were really trying to give that expressivity to emulate those kinds of acoustic instruments that are really hard to make sound right with just a regular keyboard. Yamaha came up with the breath controllers and the wind controllers to really refine that expressivity that you need to be able to emulate those instruments. And I've got something here. Yeah, if I can show you that. This is the Korg Prophecy. This is the mid-90s. I can't remember exactly when it came out. Let me put it down there. But Korg got all the great minds of digital synthesis at the time to develop that instrument. It's another solo instrument. It's only 3 octaves, but that's enough. That's all you need in order to be able to emulate a trumpet or a trombone or a clarinet or whatever else it is that's a real-world instrument that you want to try and emulate. And so, that expressivity is what you need in order to be able to emulate those real-world instruments. And so you're going to get an awful lot of demos on YouTube of the Osmose with pluck sounds and woodwinds and those kinds of things. And I will play some brass and some woodwind sounds later on with other videos, but for today I'm going to stick with traditional synthesizer and keyboard sounds. Now there's a number of different sort of like preset categories to choose from. There's pads and keys and organs and I can't remember what else. I'll show you the list that I'm going through on the screen right now. So there's a number of different categories to choose from. The category I'm going to choose for the demos today are just pad sounds. Simple as that. I'll just play a few pad sounds and let's see what we think. And as I said before, I'm going to keep it very, very simple. Just play a few notes, nothing fancy, nothing fast, and just let the instrument play itself. Right, so with those presets that I was playing, and with all the presets that I played in the first video, I just literally played them exactly as they sound after selecting them on the front panel. But what the Osmose gives us is the ability to play around with the sounds. Not just listen to them as they stand. They're not static. We've got some controls on the front panel, and for each preset, the sound designer that created that preset can define up to 6 macros for you to be able to play around with the sound. So the macros are not consistent from one preset to the next. One preset might have macros to change the filter cutoff. Others might have macros to do something completely different. So it's entirely up to the sound designer on a preset by preset basis as to what these macros do. But they work kind of similarly to a Hydrasynth. The Hydrasynth has got macro knobs. So what you can do is you can take some modulations that you've got set up and you can apply them to macro knobs. So rather than having to delve into all the details of how the patch was set up and go into the mod matrix, and it's all rather complicated on the Hydrasynth, you can just twiddle around with real-time control using macros. And it's exactly the same, basically, it's exactly the same with the Osmose, because if you want to play around with the patch itself, if you want to edit it, then you're going to have to use the software. And I can appreciate that not so many people are going to want to play around with software, a software editor on a computer or a Mac. So having ability to sort of like change the sounds to a degree with these macros controls I think is a really good idea by Expressive-E. I'll show you now just a little demonstration of a couple of different patches that I've chosen, playing around with the macros as to what they can do. They're very, very different patches, and they are very, very different sets of macros that have been provided for each one. If we go to synth here, I've got a choir sound. Now when I switch to synth, you'll see here that I've got these macros. In fact, there are 6 of them. You've got 4 controls, so you can see only 4 at a time, but you can scroll through and see the other ones at the end there by scrolling through with this control here. So we've got 6 in total. Let's look at these first 4 here, these main 4. So there's some specific macros here set up regarding voice. We've got vowel type, vowel depth, formant control, and a voice spread control. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn all of these things right down so that we can just hear what's going on with the vowel type. So if I hold down just one key and then turn this, it's subtly changing the sound. I'm going to go back to 25, which is kind of an R sound. Next we've got vowel depth, which, to be honest with you, doesn't appear to do very much, not with these settings as I have them. We'll come back to that in a minute. Next we've got formant. It's clearly kind of, I don't know, filtering the sound in some way or changing the EQ, maybe it's a comb filter. But when I've got formant enabled, or I've got some formant dialed in, then that's when the vowel depth can be heard. It's still very subtle though. And then we've got voice spread. I'm just going to play one note. It's creating a variety from one note to the next. I don't know which of these parameters it's actually varying. Maybe it's the vowel type, or maybe it's all of them, I don't know. So down at 0 we just get a constant sound. We could dial it in and get variety. I guess when you play chords, that's going to give you the sort of like the most sort of natural result. Let's just turn it back down to 0 for the time being. Let's move across to the other controls. So we've got 2 more controls. We've got release. Now there's a lot of effects going on with this sound anyway, so it's got a bit of a long release due to delay and reverb. But let's whack it up to maximum. Pretty obvious what that does. And then we've got chorus, so at the moment it's almost at maximum. This is what it sounds like off. Okay, so here's another example of macros. This is a much more traditional synth sound, and you'll see that the macros are much more traditional in terms of cutoff, filter cutoff, resonance, envelope, and waveform. Let's hear what they do. Right, so the last thing I want to cover in this video is basically a progress update of me trying to get the Osmose to talk to the software editor. I'm actually now getting it to talk to the software editor, which is brilliant. I'll show you it on the screen right now. But I do get that error message coming up there saying something about an update using file number 2, and I also get a similar kind of message, or a different message actually, on the Osmose itself telling me that I need to update. So it's not quite right yet. I need to figure out what that is. I'm going to ask support what they think of that. I don't know whether it's going to be the Hucken Audio guys or it's going to be the Expressive-E guys, but we'll figure that out. Hopefully by the time I do my next video I will have got that working, because I really would like to show you how the editor software works, and let's have a go at editing a few presets and maybe even create one from scratch. But as you can see here, the Egan matrix, it's a very, very, very different way of looking at synthesizer parameters and setting them up. It's really not going to be for everybody. There's nothing there that's familiar. It's really quite a sort of like an eye-opener, this particular editor. Incredibly powerful. The sounds are incredibly beautiful that you can get out of this editor. But as for editing it, it's a completely different animal altogether. So anyway, that's maybe what I'll come up with in the next video. Let's see if I can get that far. Otherwise, I'll just play some more presets and give you some more examples of the kind of sounds that we've got going on here. So if you've got any particular preferences, then just let me know in the comments below. As always, thank you very, very much for watching. Until the next video, see you then.